Hey there, welcome back to the Mr. Mason Stories family. It's great to have you here, whether you're a longtime listener or just stumbled across us today. I've got something special for you, a romantic, funny, and totally wild love story that'll keep you hooked from start to finish. Picture this: a woman waking up in a stranger's luxury loft, wearing nothing but his sweater, with zero clue how she got there. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's just the beginning. This tale's got everything: awkward moments, big surprises, and a love that sneaks up when you least expect it. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get started. Oh, and if you love these heartfelt stories as much as I love telling them, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It means the world to us, and it'll make sure you never miss a single tale from Mr. Mason's stories. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. All right, here we go. Chapter 1's about to kick off, and it's a wild ride. So, here's where it all begins. Meet Elena Carter, 32 years old, a freelance photographer with a knack for capturing the raw, messy beauty of life. She's got this fiery spirit, the kind that doesn't let a breakup knock her down for long. And trust me, she's had her share of heartbreak. 5 years with Ethan, her ex, down the drain when he admitted he'd been sneaking around behind her back. That was 6 months ago in Boston, and Elena decided she was done with that city, done with him. New York was her fresh start, a chance to rebuild, to focus on her art, to forget the sting of betrayal. She packed her camera, her favorite leather jacket, and moved into a tiny apartment in Queens. New city, new her. At least, that was the plan. Fast forward to last Friday night. Elena's been in New York for a couple of weeks, hustling gigs, meeting deadlines, and honestly keeping herself too busy to think about Ethan. But that night she needed a break. A friend had raved about Neon Pulse, this trendy bar in Brooklyn with dim lights, thumping music, and the kind of vibe that makes you feel alive. Elena thought, why not? A drink or two might shake off the gloom that had been creeping in. She threw on her favorite black dress, tight, simple, the one that always made her feel unstoppable, and headed out. The bar was packed when she got there. People laughing, glasses clinking, the air thick with chatter and that faint smell of spilled beer. Elena slid onto a stool, ordered a whiskey sour, and let the buzz of the place wash over her. One drink turned into two, then three. She wasn't planning to get wasted. Elena's not the type to lose control like that. But every sip brought back Ethan's face, his excuses, the way he'd looked at her like she was the fool. I'm better than this, she muttered to her glass, but the words felt hollow. Before she knew it, the room was spinning and her memory started fraying at the edges. She vaguely recalled some guys hovering nearby, 3 of them maybe, snickering and leaning too close. One had a hand on her shoulder, his breath sour with cheap cologne. She shoved him off, or tried to, but her arms felt like jelly. Then a voice cut through the haze. Deep, cold, sharp as a blade. Back off. Now. The guys scattered, and after that, nothing. Just black. Next thing she knows, it's morning. Elena's eyes flutter open, and she's not in her cramped Queen's bedroom with the creaky floorboards and the view of a brick wall. No, she's somewhere else entirely. The room's huge, modern, almost too perfect. Polished wood floors, sleek black furniture, and a massive window stretching floor to ceiling. Sunlight pours in, glinting off the Hudson River in the distance, with the Manhattan skyline poking through a thin layer of mist. It's breathtaking. But Elena's too busy panicking to care. Her head's pounding like a drum, each throb a reminder of last night's whiskey. She sits up, fast, clutching the blanket to her chest, and that's when it hits her. She's not wearing her dress. She's in an oversized gray sweater, soft, expensive, definitely not hers. Underneath? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Oh my God, Elena, what did you do? She whispers, her voice shaky as she runs a hand through her tangled hair. Her heart's racing, her mind scrambling to piece it together, but it's like trying to grab smoke. She swings her legs out of bed, the sweater sliding down to mid-thigh, and pads barefoot across the cold floor. She's got to figure out where she is, how she got here. Her eyes dart around the room. There's a leather sofa in the corner, a glass coffee table, a weird abstract sculpture that looks like it costs more than her rent. This isn't some random crash pad, it's a luxury loft, the kind you see in magazines. She spots her camera bag in the corner. Thank God it's safe. But then she sees her dress. It's crumpled in a trash can by the bed, soaked through and reeking of whiskey and something worse. She gags, covering her nose. "Did I puke on myself?" she mutters, a wave of shame slamming into her. But the bigger question looms. Who got her out of that dress and into this sweater? She's pacing now, tugging the sweater lower, trying to stay calm. Maybe she called a friend or an Uber went wrong. Nothing makes sense. She's about to dig through her camera bag for her phone when the door swings open. Elena freezes, yanking the blanket up like a shield. A guy steps in, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark brown hair swept back and eyes so blue they could cut glass. He's in a black button-up, sleeves rolled to the elbows, holding a steaming mug of coffee. He looks at her, calm as anything, like this is totally normal. "Morning," he says, his voice low and steady. "You're awake." Elena's throat goes dry. Who are you? Where am I?" she stammers, her hands trembling so hard she nearly drops the blanket. The lamp on the bedside table wobbles as she bumps it. She catches it just in time, cursing herself for being such a mess in front of this guy. He smirks, just a flicker, and sets the mug on the glass table. "I'm Julian Pierce. This is my place, and you're here because you were too drunk to tell me where you lived last night." He pauses, those blue eyes scanning her like he's sizing her up. "You threw up all over yourself, and me, so I changed you. You're welcome." Her face burns, humiliation hitting her like a freight train. She can picture it, him peeling off her ruined dress, wrestling her into this sweater while she was out cold. You changed me?" she squeaks, tugging the sweater down again, though it's pointless. He shrugs, totally unfazed. "Had to. Couldn't leave you lying in that mess. You're heavier than you look, by the way. Took some effort to get you up here." Elena's jaw drops. "Heavier than I? Did you just call me heavy?" She's mortified, angry, and weirdly grateful all at once. This stranger, this ridiculously handsome, annoyingly calm stranger, saved her from God knows what last night, and now she's standing here half naked in his loft, yelling at him. What even is her life right now? Elena stumbles out of Julian's loft that morning with her camera bag slung over her shoulder and her dignity somewhere back in that trash can with her ruined dress. She's still wearing his sweater. There was no way she was fishing that soaked mess out. And he didn't even blink when she muttered a quick, "I'll wash it and get it back to you." His only response was a cool, "Keep it." "I've got plenty." She hails a cab back to Queens, the whole ride spent replaying the night before, or what little she can remember. Those guys at the bar, Julian stepping in, the puking. God, the puking. She groans, sinking into the seat, promising herself she'll never drink like that again. New York was supposed to be her clean slate, not a canvas for epic humiliation. By the time she's back in her tiny apartment, she's got a pounding headache and a plan. Shove this whole disaster into a mental box, lock it, and throw away the key. She's got a big meeting tomorrow. A new client, some hotshot tech company called Helix, that's launching a fancy campaign. They liked her portfolio, the gritty urban shots she's known for. And if she nails this gig, it could be her ticket to making a real name here. She spends the rest of Sunday nursing her hangover with coffee and editing photos, trying to focus on lens settings instead of Julian's stupidly sharp blue eyes or the way he'd called her heavy. "I'm not heavy," she mutters to her laptop, like it's going to argue back. "I hike. I lift weights. Okay, sometimes, whatever." Monday morning rolls around and Elena's determined to put her best foot forward. She pulls on a sleek black blazer, jeans, and her favorite boots. Professional, but still her. Camera bag in tow, she heads to Helix office in Midtown, a towering glass building that screams money and ambition. The lobby's all white marble and modern art, and she's buzzing with nerves as she rides the elevator to the 15th floor. This is it, her shot to prove she's more than a heartbroken mess who can't hold her liquor. She's led into a conference room with a long table, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a handful of people in sharp suits. She sets up her laptop, ready to pitch her idea, a photo series capturing New York's restless energy, all neon lights and concrete tied to Helix's cutting-edge vibe. She's rehearsed it a dozen times. It's bold. It's her. Then the door swings open and her stomach drops straight through the floor. In walks Julian Pierce. Same dark hair, same piercing blue eyes, same air of quiet control. He's in a tailored gray suit now, no rolled-up sleeves, but it's unmistakably him, the guy who peeled her out of a pukey dress and hauled her into his loft. He's carrying a tablet, scanning the room, and when his gaze lands on her, there's a flicker, something between recognition and amusement. "Good morning, everyone," he says, his voice smooth and deep. "I'm Julian Pierce, CEO of Helix. Let's see what you've got." He takes a seat at the head of the table, leans back, and fixes those eyes on her. "Ms. Carter, right? I'm expecting something impressive." Elena's brain short-circuits. CEO? He's not just some random rich guy who hangs out in bars. He's her client, her boss for this gig. She wants to crawl under the table and disappear, but there's no escape. She forces a smile, praying her face isn't as red as it feels. Yeah, hi, yes, Mr. Pierce. I've got something ready." She fumbles with her laptop, clicking too fast, and launches into her pitch. "So, I'm thinking a series called City Pulse. Raw shots of New York at night, the lights, the chaos, paired with Helix's tech. It's about energy, innovation, you know?" She's rambling, but she powers through, flipping through sample shots. Or blurry taxis, glowing skyscrapers, a stranger's silhouette against a neon sign. The room's quiet, nodding along, and she starts to think she might actually pull this off. Then it happens. She's reaching for her pen to jot down a note, some feedback from a suit across the table, and her hand slips, the pen clatters to the floor, rolling right to Julian's polished shoes. The room goes still, a couple of people stifling laughs. Elena's heart sinks. Not again. She bends to grab it, but Julian's faster. He leans down, picks it up, and hands it back with a smirk that's way too smug for her liking. "You've got a real talent for dropping things, Ms. Carter," he says, low enough that only she hears. "Try not to make it a habit." Her face flames and she snatches the pen, muttering a thanks that sounds more like a grunt. The guy next to her chuckles, and she wants to melt into the carpet. But here's the thing, she nails the pitch. Despite the pen fiasco, her photos hit the mark. The team loves the urban edge, the way she ties it to Helix's sleek gadgets. Julian's the last to speak, his voice cool and measured. "It's good, rough around the edges, but that's the point, isn't it? You're hired, Ms. Carter, lead photographer for the campaign." He pauses, that smirk creeping back. "Just don't drop your camera on set, okay?" The room laughs again, and Elena forces a grin, dying inside. Hired by the guy who saw her at her absolute worst. Great. She nods, packing up her stuff as fast as she can, avoiding his gaze. She's halfway to the elevator when he calls after her. "Oh, and Elena?" She turns, startled he's using her first name. "Nice sweater," he says, glancing at the gray one peeking out from her open bag, the one she forgot to leave at home. He walks off, leaving her standing there, mortified. Back at her apartment that night, Elena flops onto her couch, staring at the ceiling. Julian Pierce is her client, her hot, infuriatingly calm client who knows she's a lightweight with whiskey and a klutz to boot. She groans, pulling the sweater over her face like it'll hide her shame. She's got the job of her dreams, but working with him? That's a whole other mess. She tells herself to keep it professional, shoot the photos, cash the check, move on. But something about the way he looked at her in that meeting, that tiny spark behind his icy stare, sticks with her. She shakes it off. Nope, she mutters, not happening. He's just a paycheck, not a crush. Famous last words, right? Elena's life turns into a juggling act after that Helix meeting. She's officially the lead photographer for their big campaign, which means she's got deadlines, mood boards, and a paycheck that could finally cover more than ramen and rent. It also means she's stuck working with Julian Pierce way more than she'd like, or maybe not enough depending on the day. The guy's everywhere. She's lugging her camera gear into Helix's sleek midtown office for test shots, and there he is, leaning against a desk, watching her set up lights like it's his personal entertainment. She's scouting locations in Brooklyn at dusk, and he shows up in a black coat, tossing out ideas about angles and shadows. She can't shake him, and worse, she's starting to not mind it. It's not like he's hovering in a creepy way, he's just there. Professional, mostly. He's all business when they're planning. We need shots that scream innovation, Elena. Think bold. But then she'll trip over a cable or knock over a prop, and he's right there to catch it. Or her. With that maddening smirk. You're a walking hazard, he'll say, handing her a lens she dropped for the third time that day. She fires back. And you're a walking ego, but it's hard to stay mad when he's got those blue eyes glinting like he's in on some private joke. She hates how it gets under her skin, how he gets under her skin. She's supposed to be focusing on her work, not wondering if he's flirting or just messing with her. Take last Thursday, for instance. She's at his loft. Yeah, that loft, shooting product photos for Helix's new gadget. Some slick little device that's supposed to change how people connect or whatever. The place is perfect for it, all clean lines and natural light pouring through that giant window. She's got her tripod set up, fiddling with the focus, when Julian walks in with 2 coffees. Thought you could use this, he says, setting one down next to her. She grabs it grateful and takes a sip. Black, strong, exactly how she likes it. How'd you know? She asks, half suspicious. He shrugs, sipping his own. Lucky guess. You don't strike me as a cream and sugar type. She snorts. Guess you're not totally clueless, and he actually laughs, a low, rare sound that catches her off guard. For a second, they're just 2 people sharing coffee, not a CEO and the girl who puked on his floor. They get to talking while she adjusts the lights. He asks, what do you like about this gig? The photography, I mean. She pauses, surprised he cares. It's the moments, she says, lining up a shot. Freezing something real, like the way this city never sleeps, or how your tech's got that same restless energy. It's not just pictures, it's stories. He nods, leaning against the wall, watching her work. You're good at that, seeing the story. She glances at him, expecting a jab. But there's none. Just those eyes locked on her, steady and warm for once. Her stomach flips, and she quickly turns back to her camera. Thanks, she mumbles, pretending to tweak something that doesn't need tweaking. But it's not all cozy coffee chats. She's still Elena, queen of chaos. One night they're shooting on a rooftop, city lights sprawling below, perfect for her city pulse vibe. She's balancing her camera, trying to get the skyline just right, when her foot catches on a ledge. She stumbles, the lens slipping from her hand, and Julian lunges to grab it before it smashes. Seriously? He says, handing it back. I should start charging you for these saves, she glares, brushing hair out of her face. Maybe if you didn't sneak up on me, I'd be fine, he smirks. I wasn't sneaking. You're just a magnet for trouble. She wants to snap back, but he's right, and that's the worst part. Trouble follows her whenever he's around, or maybe he's the trouble. Things are rolling along like that, awkward, flirty, confusing, until Saturday hits her like a brick. She's at her makeshift studio in Queens, a cluttered corner of her apartment with backdrops and lights, editing shots from the week. There's a knock at the door, and she figures it's the delivery guy with her takeout. Nope, it's Ethan, her ex. Standing there in a beat-up jacket, blonde hair messy, brown eyes full of something she used to fall for, Regret, maybe. He's holding a bouquet of daisies, her old favorite, and she feels the air suck out of the room. Elena, he starts, voice rough. I messed up. I know I don't deserve it, but I came to New York to find you. I want you back. She stares at him, 5 years of memories crashing in. Good ones, bad ones, the ugly end. What are you doing here? She snaps, arms crossed tight. He steps closer, flowers shaking in his grip. I was an idiot. I threw us away, and I hate myself for it. Please, just hear me out. She wants to slam the door, but her feet won't move. You cheated, Ethan. You broke me. And now you think flowers fix that? He drops his head, voice cracking. I don't. But I love you, Elena. I'll do anything to prove it. She's about to tell him to get lost when she hears footsteps. Julian's voice cuts through from the stairwell. Elena, you left your flash drive at the loft. He stops dead, seeing Ethan, flowers, the whole pathetic scene. Elena's heart sinks. Julian's face doesn't change, still that cool, unreadable mask, but his eyes flicker, darken for a split second. Didn't mean to interrupt, he says, tossing the flash drive onto her table. See you Monday. He's gone before she can explain, leaving her standing there with Ethan and a pit in her stomach. Who was that? Ethan asks, frowning. None of your business, she shoots back, shoving the daisies into his chest. Go home, Ethan. We're done, he pleads, but she shuts the door, locks it, and slides down to the floor, head in her hands. She doesn't know what Julian saw, what he thinks. Did he assume she's taking Ethan back? She replays his clipped tone, the way he bolted, and it stings more than it should. Ethan's a ghost she can banish, but Julian, he's something else, something she's not ready to name. She grabs the flash drive, pops it into her laptop, and sees the rooftop shots they worked on together. His shadows in one frame, caught mid-save as she fumbled her lens. She stares at it, muttering, "What am I doing?" She's got a campaign to finish, a past to bury, and now a CEO who's probably writing her off. Monday's going to be a nightmare. Elena's weekend is a blur after Ethan's ambush at her door. She spends Sunday pacing her apartment, replaying Julian's cold exit, tossing that flash drive like it was nothing, his voice flat and clipped. It's not like they're anything more than colleagues, right? Just a boss and his clumsy photographer, sharing coffee and a few laughs. So why does it bug her so much that he saw her with Ethan? Why does she care what he thinks? She tries to shake it off, diving into edits for the Helix campaign. Those neon-lit shots of New York that are starting to look damn good if she says so herself. But every time she pauses, she sees Julian's face, that flicker in his eyes before he walked away. She mutters to her screen, "Get a grip, Elena. He's not your problem." Monday rolls around and she heads to Helix, expecting the worst. Julian's not there. No leaning against desks, no smirking at her fumbles, just an empty office and a curt email waiting in her inbox. "Ms. Carter, send me the latest proofs when you can, JP." That's it. No nice work, no don't drop anything. She stares at it, a knot tightening in her chest. He's avoiding her. She asks a coworker, casual as she can, "Hey, where's Pierce today?" The guy shrugs. "Out with investors or something. Been weirdly quiet lately." Weirdly quiet. Great. She spends the day shooting test shots in the studio, but her heart's not in it. Every clatter of her gear reminds her of him picking up her stuff, and it's driving her nuts. The week drags on like that. Julian's a ghost. He's skipping meetings, sending one-word replies, leaving her to deal with the Helix team solo. She's killing it, though. The campaign's coming together, all sharp edges and city glow, just like she pitched. But it feels hollow without him there to nod or throw in some dry comment. By Thursday, she's had it. She's not some fragile mess who needs to tiptoe around a guy's mood swings. If he's pissed about Ethan, he can say it to her face. She's about to text him something snarky like, "You alive or just allergic to me now?" when she decides to dig through her old photo stash instead. She's got a box of prints from her Boston days. Stuff she hasn't touched since the move. Maybe there's something in there she can use for the campaign, a little nostalgia to spice it up. She's knee-deep in faded Polaroids and crumpled prints when she pulls out a shot that stops her cold. It's her, maybe 10 years old, standing on a rocky Boston beach. Wind's whipping her hair and she's grinning, holding a cracked seashell. Next to her is a boy, skinny, dark hair, blue eyes squinting against the sun. He's got this shy smile, one hand shielding her from a wave crashing too close. She remembers that day. Some kid she met at her cousin's summer house. A quiet boy who stuck up for her when the neighbor brats tried to steal her shell collection. He'd shoved one of them into the sand, told them to buzz off, then spent the afternoon building a sandcastle with her. She'd liked him, called him her beach knight in her head, but they lost touch when summer ended. She never even got his last name. Her hands shake as she stares at the photo. Those eyes, that hair. It's Julian. Julian Pierce, her beach knight, the kid who'd been her shadow for one perfect summer. She flips the photo over, no name, just a scribbled Boston, 1. Her mind races. He grew up in Boston too. She remembers him mentioning it once, casual, over coffee at his loft. Grew up by the water, he'd said, but he never brought up her. Did he know? Has he known this whole time? She digs through more photos, frantic, and finds another. A blurry shot of them laughing, his arm slung around her shoulder. It's him, no question. Elena's head spins. The guy who saved her from a bar creep, who changed her pukey dress, who's been picking up her dropped lenses, he's not just some random CEO. He's the boy from her past, the one she'd forgotten until now. She sits back, the box tipping over, spilling prints across the floor. Why didn't he say anything? Did he recognize her that first night, or later, when she started fumbling through his campaign? She thinks back. Every smirk, every "you're a hazard," every coffee he brought her. Was it just work, or something more? And then, Ethan, did seeing her with him make Julian pull away because he cared, not just because he's her boss? She's up all night with it, pacing, staring at that beach photo like it'll talk back. By Friday, she's a wreck. Bags under her eyes, coffee gone cold on her counter. She's got a shoot at Helix, and Julian's finally there, striding through the office in a black sweater, all business. He barely looks at her, barking orders to the team. Let's wrap this up today. I want finals by Monday. She tries to catch his eye, but he's a wall. Cold, distant, nothing like the guy who laughed with her on that rooftop. She's setting up her camera when her hand slips. Of course it does, and a light stand wobbles. He catches it, reflexes fast as ever, and hands it back without a word. No smirk, no jab, just silence. It's worse than anything he could have said. After the shoot, she corners him in the hallway, her voice sharp. Hey, what's your deal? You've been dodging me all week. He stops, turns, those blue eyes locking on hers. Same eyes from that beach, and it hits her like a punch. Been busy, he says, flat. You've got Ethan to keep you company anyway. Her jaw drops. Ethan? That's what this is about? You saw him for 5 seconds and decided I'm back with him? He shrugs, but there's a crack in his cool. A flinch, quick and gone. Didn't look like you were kicking him out. Figured I'd stay out of it. He starts to walk away, but she grabs his arm. Wait, Julian, we need to talk. Not about Ethan, about Boston. His face freezes, just for a second, but she catches it. He knows. He's always known. What about Boston? He asks, voice tight. She pulls the photo from her bag, holds it up. 2 kids, a beach, a summer that's suddenly not so lost. This, you, me. Why didn't you tell me? He stares at it, then at her, and for the first time, Julian Pierce, CEO, rescuer, smirking pain in her ass. Looks like he's got no words. She's got him, and she's not letting go until she knows everything. Elena's standing there in Helix hallway, holding that old beach photo like it's a live wire, and Julian's looking at her like she just cracked his world open. The office hums around them, phones ringing, heels clicking. but it's like they're the only two people in the room. Boston, she says again, her voice shaky but firm. You were that kid, weren't you? The one who built sandcastles with me, who scared off those jerks on the beach. Why didn't you say anything? Julian's jaw tightens, his blue eyes flicking from the photo to her face. For a guy who's always got an answer, he's eerily quiet. Finally, he mutters, Didn't think you'd remember. It was a long time ago. She steps closer, not buying it. A long time ago? You recognized me that night at the bar, didn't you? And you still said nothing? He runs a hand through his hair, breaking that perfect CEO polish for once. Yeah, I knew it was you, he admits, voice low. The second I saw you at Neon Pulse, all sloppy and stubborn, shoving that creep away, it clicked. Elena Carter, the girl who wouldn't let me win at rock skipping. But you were hammered, and then you were working for me. What was I supposed to say? Hey, remember that summer I had a crush on you? She blinks, caught off guard. A crush? He smirks, but it's softer, almost sad. Come on, Elena. I followed you around like a lost puppy that whole summer. You didn't notice? Her mind reels, those hazy memories sharpening, him hauling seaweed for their castle, blushing when she hugged him goodbye. She hadn't noticed. She'd been too busy being a kid. Before she can respond, he turns away, shutting down again. Doesn't matter. You've got your ex back in the picture now. I'm not here to complicate things. He starts walking off, and that's when she snaps. Julian, stop. Ethan's not in the picture. He never was. You saw him begging, not me saying yes. You're dodging me over a stupid misunderstanding. He pauses, half turning, but doesn't meet her eyes. Looked pretty real to me, he says. And there's something raw in his tone, something she's never heard from him. It hits her. He cares. Not just as her boss, not just as some old friend. He cares, and he's been pulling away to protect himself. She's done waiting for answers. She needs to fix this. Now. Friday night rolls in with a storm. Rain slamming New York like it's trying to wash the city away. Elena's a mess all day, barely focusing on her edits, that beach photo burning a hole in her bag. She's got a text from Ethan. Meet me at 6, one last time, please. And she agrees, not because she wants him back, but because she needs to end it for good. She heads to a diner near Helix, the kind with sticky booths and flickering lights. Ethan's there, all scruffy and desperate, sliding into the seat across from her. I know I screwed up, he starts, hands clasped tight. But I love you, Elena. Give me one more shot. She cuts him off, calm but cold. No, Ethan, I loved you once, but you broke that. I'm done. He grabs her hand, pleading, don't do this. But she pulls back, stands, and walks out into the rain. It's over. She feels it. Free. Fine. She's soaked in seconds, her umbrella useless against the wind, but she doesn't care. There's one place she needs to be. She treks to Julian's loft in Midtown. The city a blur of wet lights and honking cabs. Her boots splash through puddles, her hair's plastered to her face, and when she gets to his building, her umbrella slips from her grip, tumbling down the street. She doesn't chase it, just buzzes his door, shivering, heart pounding. He opens it, standing there in a gray tee and jeans, hair damp like he just got in too. Elena, he says, eyes wide. What the hell are you doing out there? She steps inside, dripping all over his perfect floor. I need to talk to you, she says, teeth chattering but voice steady. And you're not running off this time. He crosses his arms, that cool mask slipping back on. About what? Your boyfriend? I saw you with him at that diner. She cuts him off, loud enough to drown out the rain. You're such an idiot, Julian. I didn't choose Ethan. I told him to get lost. But you've been avoiding me all week because you're too stubborn to ask. He frowns, thrown. Then why was he holding your hand? She shakes her head, water flying everywhere. Because he wouldn't let go. I don't love him anymore. I haven't for a long time. She takes a step closer, her wet coat brushing his floor. But you? I've been tripping over myself around you since day one, and it's not just because I'm a klutz. It's you, Julian. Boston, the bar, all of it. I like you, you jerk. He stares at her, rain roaring outside, and then he cracks, laughs, big and real, the first time she's heard it like that. You look like a drowned rat yelling at me in my own house, he says, stepping toward her. I thought I'd lost you to him. Seeing you at that diner, it gutted me. She laughs too, half exasperated. Then why didn't you just ask, you big dummy? He pulls her in, arms warm against her soaked skin. Because I'm an idiot who's been half in love with you since we were kids. I didn't want to hear you picked him. She leans into him, grinning through the mess of wet hair. Well, I didn't. I picked you. He kisses her then, soft at first, then deeper, like they've both been holding it back forever. She wraps her arms around his neck, the rain fading to a hum outside, and it's just them, two kids from Boston finding each other again. When they pull back, he smirks, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. Need my sweater again? You're a mess, she laughs, loud and free. Just don't call me heavy this time. He pulls her close again, and for once, she doesn't drop a thing. 6 months later, Elena Carter standing in Julian's loft, well, their loft now, holding her camera up to the morning light. The place looks different these days. Her prints line the walls, a beat-up armchair she dragged in sits by the window, and the air smells like coffee and croissants. The Helix campaign was a smash, her city pulse shots plastered across billboards, magazines calling it the vibe of the year. It put Helix on the map, and Elena right next to Julian, not just as his photographer, but as his partner. They're a team now, in work and in life, building something bigger than either of them dreamed. She's wearing his gray sweater again, the one from that first wild night, and she catches her reflection in the glass, smiling, lighter than she's felt in years. Julian steps in, 2 mugs in hand, hair messy from sleep. You're up early, he says, setting her coffee down. She grins. Couldn't sleep, too happy. He pulls her close, teasing, Don't drop that mug, I'm not cleaning it up. She laughs, leaning into him. Thanks for picking me up, then and now. He kisses her forehead. Always.